Even if a woman is finally working where she wants to work after going through education and the hiring process, there are still problems for her to face regarding the gender wage gap. One of the main explanations for the magnitude of the unconditional gender wage gap comes from American economist Solomon Polacek, who used the human capital model to describe the wage difference. He argued that women earned less because they didn't invest as much as men in their human capital, meaning education, college degrees, etc. A main reason why they did not do so is because they expected to leave the workforce at some stage in their life. But why? Interviews conducted with 34 women who left the workforce showed that 75% of them left because of children. Childcare is still women's work, even if they are working full-time. Studies found that women with access to parental leave enjoy higher earnings because of their closer ties to their firms. Also, women are encouraged to re-enter the labor market, which means that countries with generous parental leave have a higher female labor participation. But the positive effects only prevail when both partners make use of the leave and women don't leave work for too long. Especially in higher earning jobs, the negative effects can be dominant. Childcare policies have a similar effect on the labor market participation, and therefore on higher earnings. Such measures increase women's attachment to firms and thereby increase incentives to make investments in human capital. All in all, it might sound that we have found the perfect way to solve the gender wage gap. However, it is not that easy as we can derive from data, and it was not the only reason why women left the workplace. Almost half of the interviewed women left their workplace because their work schedule was too inflexible. Claudia Goldin, one of the most important researchers of the gender wage gap, explained that work schedules were the reason for the remaining wage gap. She looked at different professions and compared the wage differences between men and women. The results are quite surprising. This is one of her charts. Each dot represents a job in a specific profession, either science, tech, or business. The closer it is to the line, the smaller is the pay gap between men and women. While most of the dots representing science or tech jobs cluster around the 10% wage gap line, the business jobs are far beneath them, which means that in these jobs, the pay gap is far higher. This has to do with inflexible working schedules. In business sectors, male and female employees are expected to stay in the office from 9 to 5 or any other core working period with no flexibility around. Whereas a typical scientist is mostly self-directed. Her work is mostly based on experiments. It is not as important when she conducts them, as long as she is conducting them. So what can we learn from these findings and how can we turn them into solutions? As we can see, not for all women parental leave policies solve the problem. We need additional measures. Goldin states that it also requires changes in the structure of work in order to imply temporal flexibility. There even is a great example which shows that such a change had a high impact on the remaining pay gap: pharmacists. As huge chains own most pharmacies, the number of employees increased and flexible schedules were introduced. It was important that there were employees throughout the whole day in the pharmacy, but it was irrelevant who it was. This led to more flexibility for the employees and reduced the gender pay gap for pharmacists. Indeed, the full-time female worker makes 92% of what her male colleague earns. Goldin recognizes that there always will be jobs that can't offer high flexibility regarding their work schedules, but there are still plenty of jobs which flexibility can be increased. This is definitely a great opportunity to reduce the remaining gender wage gap. So starting from education, through entering the work life, and spending time in and outside the workforce, we discovered the main issues that led to the unconditional gender wage gap and explored possible solutions to minimize their effects. Recognizing the complexity of the problem, we have to accept that there are still more aspects that influence the wage gap, and that different combinations of measures will lead to different outcomes. There's not a single cause and not one single solution, but with this set of policy changes, we can contribute to a significant reduction of the gender wage gap. Regarding all this information, what are your thoughts? Tell us.
Created using Powtoon.